this is another topic. I'll start with this, and then we will we specifically are going to be talking about a Gaussian mixture model. But before that, we know, so this is now, I'm going to set aside speech for some time. We are going to talk about basically what is a Gaussian, what is a density function, what is this mixture of Gaussians and so on, so that you refresh your background. You might have encountered these things elsewhere, but I'm just spending a few hours so that you recall all of these things, because we will use them quite extensively later on. Okay, so now you must have seen in high school and so on. So this idea of bell curve or a normal and standard normal and so on. So the idea is that if you make a large number of measurements of, let's say, heights or weights and so on, typically they will follow what's called a bell-shaped curve. Okay, and this is a consequence of something called the central limit theorem, because each person's measurement is independent of the others, and so we are taking a large set of such measurements, and the large numbers kick in and so on and so on. Okay, so essentially you have seen this, and you are always fitting the curve when you're talking about marks. So most of us are worried about our marks or grades in different courses, and so we say, will the professor fit the curve, right? I mean the mark distribution, and then have different cutoffs for A, B and so on, right? So you have seen this kind of thing multiple times. So this is basically what is called the Gaussian, right? And the idea is that it has got a closed form equation describing this particular function, and it has two parameters. One is called the mu, which is basically we will see some idea of mean, because it's quite closely related to our idea of what an average should be. Okay, and sigma, or the standard deviation, and related quantity sigma squared, which is often called the variance. Okay, so this is one of the most important ideas that is used in statistical processing. So, and in many phenomena, the Gaussian is a naturally good model to use. Okay, and so if you see, there is a squared operation here, so some kind of a symmetry will come into place. Okay, so you can see this is a function of x, so this is an f of x. So the x-axis is the different values of x, and fx of x is basically the value at a particular value of x, what is the value y. Okay, and because of this squaring operation, you should expect some kind of a symmetry that should be appearing, right? And secondly, if you put this mu to be 0, then if you put mu to be non-zero, you will see that this is essentially some kind of a shift operation that you're doing. If you remember basic signal processing, right? So there is some kind of a shift is what you're doing, right? Xt minus tau means it is, if tau is positive, it's delayed, right? It moves to the right, and similar kind of shift operation is what you should notice depending on the value of mu. And if you look at sigma squared itself, right? So sigma squared is appearing in the denominator, right? And therefore, you get, depending on the value, and this constant, we will talk about it later. It's a consequence of that this has to be a density function, and therefore, the total area should integrate to 1, right? And that's why this constant is there to ensure that the area is 1. Okay, unity. Okay, so so here if you look at it, mu, the blue curve is when mu is 0, so it is centered around 0. Okay, and sigma squared is 0.2. Okay, so when I increase the sigma squared to 1.0, that is the red curve, so I am increasing this, right? And therefore, because I am increasing it, it's in the denominator, so the entire quantity is actually smaller, and therefore it's going to be more slow exponential, right? So when you increase the variance, it is going to become broader. So when sigma squared is 0.2, it is narrow. When sigma squared is red, which is 1.0, it becomes even more wider, and when sigma squared is 5, which is the brown curve, you see it's really wide. Okay, all the first three that I talked about are always going to be centered around 0, and you see symmetry around that point, right. So, centered around 0. So, there is always a symmetry that you will notice around the mean. Okay. Now, this is mu equals -2. So, it is a negative quantity. So, it is like an advance, and therefore, it will move to the left, and so it will be now centered around -2. There will still be symmetry around it, and you will see it is 0.5. So, you will see it is broader than 0.2, but less broader than the red one. So, it is in between somewhere. Okay. So, these two numbers are useful to remember what they mean. So, mu is where the the Gaussian the peak is going to be, it is going to be centered around, right, and there will be some kind of a symmetry that you will always observe because of the squaring, right. And depending on the variance, if the variance becomes larger, it is going to be more wider. Okay, that is what is going to happen. Okay. So, now so typically, as I said, Gaussians occur in many examples. So, we will specifically look at the case of heights. Okay. So, let us say I measure the heights of many people. Okay. So, let us say I form some kind of a table, right. So, I measure the heights of many people. The height at 4 feet 11, I found 27 guys had that height. At 5 feet 42 people had the height. 5 feet 1 inch 55 people had, and so I formed this table, right. This is one way of storing information. Okay. So, and you would have plotted this this histogram, so to speak. Even in high school, you would have, from this they would have asked you to find out what is the mean, right, what is the standard deviation, and so on and so on, right. So, this kind of analysis of using these frequency of occurrences, that is what they would have called it, right. So, at 5 feet you have 42, right, and so if you want to see how often this happens, it will be 42 by the total number, right. So, if you add up all these people, these are the total number of measurements that I did. Okay. So, but storing such kind of data is not easy, right, and so, and the analysis also sometimes becomes more difficult, because I have to look closely at these numbers and see, and or plot this histogram and see, and if I want to keep storing it, I have to keep track of all these numbers. Okay. So, often, as I said, they seem to follow almost a nice curve. So, this is the Gaussian curve, and as I said, many natural phenomenon follow this. So, you will see that I can fit a good curve to this. Okay. I still do not know what the parameters of the two curves are, right. So, remember, in a Gaussian there are two parameters I have to worry about, right. So, sorry here. So, there is a mean and the variance. Now, I know that I am interested in fitting a Gaussian curve here, but I do not know what the mean and what the variance should be. Okay. So, this now becomes a problem of parameter estimation. I know the shape of the curve. Okay. I know that I am going to fit a Gaussian. So, I know it is going to be of the form fx equals 1 by root of pi sigma e to the power of minus half x minus mu the whole squared by sigma squared. All this I know, right. But I do not know what the values of mu and sigma are. So, this is called a likelihood estimation problem, right. So, it is an estimation problem. I am trying to find out the estimates of the mean and the variance, and the way I am going to estimate is by maximizing the likelihood of these parameters. So, that is why we talk about maximum likelihood, generating that particular observation or the particular data, right. So, right now I know I have to fit the curve, but I do not know what values of mu and sigma are. Okay. So, therefore, I have to estimate these values of mu and sigma, that I should estimate the parameters in such a way that they explain this data, right, as best as possible. So, that is what we are saying, fitting the model, right. So, we want to fit the model that describes the data as best as possible, right. So, therefore, I am going to choose those mean and variance such that it describes this data in the best possible manner, right. That is what we are talking about. So, therefore, what we do is it is almost like a grid search, right. So, I am going to put different values of mu and sigma. When I do different values of mu and sigma, the curve is going to be different, right. I am going to now ask which value of mu and sigma is most likely to have generated the observations. So, I have this 1000 observations or something of height, okay, but and I know that I am going to fit a curve that best explains this 1000 observations, right, but I do not know what the value of mu and sigma should be, and therefore, I am going to search for that particular mu and sigma which is most. So, once I choose a particular value of mu and sigma, my curve gets fixed, right, because now the mu is fixed, the sigma is fixed, the entire function is completely described. I am going to choose that mu and sigma that is most likely to have generated this particular data. That is why we call it as likelihood, and we are trying to maximize the likelihood, and the one that we maximize is are the maximum likelihood estimate of the mean and the maximum likelihood estimate of the standard deviation. Okay. So, that is where the term likelihood and so on comes. So, how do we maximize the likelihood? Remember, I am already aware, having access to the measurements. So, I already know the data, right, x1, x2, x3, I already know the 1000 measurements. What is it that I do not know? I do not know the mean and I do not know the variance or the standard deviation. So, now depending on each choice of mu and sigma, I find out which I am trying to find out which is most likely to have generated. So, now this is a function of mu and sigma. So, this is called the likelihood function, okay, and I am trying to find out which values of mu and sigma maximizes this likelihood. So, that is basic idea of maximum likelihood estimation, and that value of mu and sigma is called the maximum likelihood estimate of mu and maximum likelihood estimate of standard deviation or sigma, and that best explains in the if you are looking in the likelihood method, that is the best estimate that you can have. Okay. So, because we are measuring heights of different people, so one person's height does not depend or determine the other person's height, these observations are independent of each other, right. So, then the questions of independence comes, and if two these observations are independent and we assume they are identically distributed, then we can actually multiply those probabilities, right, and so that is what the individual multiplication happens. Again, this is a function of mu and sigma and we have to maximize this multiplication. Excuse me. But it is often much easier when we talk about summations, because I can try to do derivatives, right, and if I have some derivative is a linear operation, and so we apply a log on this, and log is a monotonic function. So, if something is maximizing this product, the log of that will also get, if I take the log and then look for the maximum, because log is a monotonic function, the maxima will still occur at the same place. Okay. So, log will not change where the maxima occurs. Okay. So, because it is monotonic, right. So, but the advantage is that I now get a summation, and then I can, how do I find the maxima of something. So, again this comes from high school. So, when you look at a maxima, right, so at some point and then it is going to curve back, right. So, to find out a maxima, we are finding where the slope will increase, then it becomes 0 and the slope decreases. Therefore, we will start looking for the derivatives, because at the peak the derivative is going to go to 0, and then we can use the second derivative to find out if it is actually a maxima or a minima, right. So, these things we are going to apply. I am not going to go into the details, but this you would have seen in high school itself, right, to find out what is the maxima of function. Here it's a maxima can be of one variable or two variable. Often it becomes more complicated, but we will look at the one variable method and do it, right. So, if you actually do it, and actually I have not written it here, you will find that the maximum likelihood estimate will turn out to be nothing, for the mu will turn out to be nothing but the average of the 1000 measurements. So, it will be 1 by 1000, add all of them, that is all, that will be mu, okay, for this particular problem. Okay. So, I will and sample variance will come. So, we will you can look it up. Okay. It is not very important, but these are ideas that should be clear in your head. Okay. Now, there I measured 1000 measurements. I did not talk about whether that measurement came from a person who was male or female. So, I did not worry about the gender of the measurement. Okay, so I'm slowly, first I'm talking about what is a Gaussian. Gaussian normally occurs in many natural applications. Then we talked about the parameters that determine the Gaussian. In this case, there are two parameters. Gaussians are always parameterized by the mean and variance. These are the only two parameters of standard deviation. Then we said, given this 1000, can I fit a Gaussian, given histogram of data, right? Can I fit a Gaussian that best explains? So then we talked about the concept of likelihood, and then making it a functions of mu and sigma, the unknown parameters. Then describing this likelihood function in terms of mu and sigma. Then we said that these observations are independent of each other, so we can make it a product. And then we said applying a log makes it additive, right? And then we said, if for any function, if I'm looking at maximas or minimas, we basically are going to take derivatives, because the derivative at the peaks at the maxima or minima will turn out to be 0. So that will identify the points where they are going to be maxima or minima, and the second derivative will tell you whether it's actually a minima or a maxima. Okay. Now I'm going to talk about when I have some additional information and how I can use that to classify whether it's a male or a female and so on. So this is now the second topic, so which is about a simple pattern classification problem. So I'll stop here and we will start with this idea of pattern classification next. Thank you.